We're lucky to share our world with the amazing animals we have. Just think, where would we be without cats and dogs welcoming us home after a long day at work or school? But beyond our urban areas lies a world of extraordinary creatures, including some that look almost mythical. From the superb bird of paradise to terrifying new unidentified creatures, here are 20 mythical-looking creatures that actually exist in the wild. Number 20. Superb bird of paradise. The superb bird of paradise, or greater La Farina, is as superb as its name suggests. These small birds from the rainforests of New Guinea have incredible features that make them stand out. Like most bird species, the male is the more impressive one. They have green crowns, blue-green coloring on their chest, and a black cape over their back. In contrast, females tend to be reddish-brown. There are very limited numbers of females, which means competition is fierce. The males must work really hard to win their lady's love. They do this in 2 stages of courtship, known as the initial display activity and the high-intensity display. This courtship process can involve preparing a dance floor by scrubbing dirt smooth with leaves and then using a loud call to attract the ladies. Yeah, but when I do that, they tell me I gotta leave the park. When a female approaches, the male will spread out his black feathery cape until it forms an ellipse shape around him. He'll then snap his tail feathers against each other, similar to how we snap our fingers, and hop around in circles like a dance. Generally, females will watch this play out with up to 20 different birds before choosing a mate, and it can take days before she's won over. Number 19. Star-nosed mole. Star-nosed moles are one of those creatures that you're not sure whether to call cute or not. They have so many adorable features, but then you look at their face and can't help but recoil a bit in horror. These small moles, found in northern parts of North America, have star-like suctions on their faces. These have about 25,000 sensory receptors known as Eimer's organs, which they use to detect vibrations in the earth. Their noses are only around 1 centimeter wide, but they have 22 appendages containing those 25,000 receptors. Researchers think that, because the star-nosed mole is blind, they use their noses to find electrical activity in prey animals, although this theory doesn't have much support. Even with poor vision, they hold the title of being the fastest-eating mammal, taking just 120 milliseconds to identify something as food and eat it. Living in wet lowland areas, they eat aquatic insects, worms, small fish, amphibians, and mollusks. They're good swimmers and dig surface tunnels from the land into the water for foraging. Number 18. Narwhal. About as close as you're going to get to a unicorn in the ocean is the narwhal. These toothed whales from Arctic waters around Russia, Canada, and Greenland have large, straight, helical tusks that are actually elongated upper left canine teeth. So they may look like unicorns, but they're not. There are many interesting stories throughout history involving narwhal. In Inuit legend, the strange narwhal tusk was created when a woman or girl with a harpoon rope around her waist had her harpoon stuck in a narwhal. She was subsequently dragged into the ocean, where she was turned into a narwhal herself. Her hair, twisted into a knot, became the spiral narwhal tusk. Medieval Europeans believed the tusk was the horn of a unicorn and had magic powers, like curing melancholia, essentially a depressed mood. Whenever Vikings and traders sold them, they were able to make huge profit. They even used to make cups out of the tusks, which they thought would neutralize poison in drinks. These days, you'd think we'd know better than to kill these majestic creatures, but we don't. About 1,000 narwhals are killed each year, with their skin, vertebrae, teeth, and tusks all sold. Their meat is eaten or fed to dogs. Number 17. Chupacabra. Chupacabra sounds like some kind of witch's spell, but it's actually the name of a legendary creature in folklore in some parts of the Americas. It supposedly attacks and drinks the blood of goats and other livestock. While we say this mythical creature exists in the wild, we don't actually know for sure. The first sightings weren't that long ago, with someone reportedly seeing a chupacabra in Puerto Rico in the 1970s, and as recently as 1995. There have also been reported sightings in Chile, Russia, the Philippines, northern Mexico, and the United States, particularly in Maine. The name of this creature comes from the belief that it's a type of vampire animal, drinking the blood of livestock. Some say it's dog-like in appearance, but people in Latin America and Puerto Rico describe it as more alien-like or reptilian. It's also described as a creature about the size of a small bear with spines running from its neck to the base of its tail. When you get a name like Chupacabra, meaning goat sucker, you know these creatures are up to no good. In 1975, in Mocha, livestock kept being killed, their bodies bled dry with tiny incisions. Many farmers reported losses, and one woman, Madeline Tolentino, claimed to see a creature resembling the chupacabra in a Puerto Rican town where 150 pets and farm animals were killed. Number 16. Aardvark. Aardvarks, or African anteaters, are unusual nocturnal mammals from Africa. They have pig-like, long snouts to sniff out food and sharp claws set on powerful legs to dig out ant and termite hills for a delicious feast. Aardvarks also dig to create burrows where they can live and raise their young. These unique creatures tend to inhabit savannas, grasslands, bushlands, and woodlands, showing they're not fussy about where they call home. As long as food like ants is available, they'll make do. They can live a surprisingly long time, up to 23 years in captivity. Aardvarks may avoid being eaten in the wild due to their incredible hearing, which allows them to detect predators like hyenas, pythons, cheetahs, and lions. This gives them a head start to get to safety. If they are spotted, they can dig quickly to escape. If that fails, they can run in a zigzag fashion. As a last resort, they strike with their tails, claws, and shoulders, which can actually cause significant damage to predators. Now it's time for today's topic. I mean, we couldn't make a video like this one and not mention Bigfoot, could we? As far as I'm concerned, and you should trust me because I'm a really great guy, there's just too much evidence to ignore when it comes to Bigfoot. There have been so many sightings, encounters, and glimpses caught on tape that something must exist, right? Even skeptics have a hard time explaining away all the footprint casts, audio recordings of strange howls, and consistent eyewitness accounts spanning decades. Then there are the mysterious blurry photos and shaky videos, which, while frustrating, still manage to keep the debate alive. Some researchers even point to potential DNA evidence collected in remote areas, suggesting a creature we've yet to classify. On top of that, indigenous legends about large, hairy beings predate modern Bigfoot stories by centuries, adding a layer of historical credibility to the phenomenon. We sure think so, but what do you think? As always, comment down below and let us know your opinion in relation to what we just showed on screen. With that said, let's keep things moving. Number 15. Thorny Devil. A thorny devil sounds like a made-up animal, but it's actually a lizard species endemic to Australia. Some people also call it a mountain devil, and I don't know if that's any better or worse, really. These lizards were first described in 1841 and were named because of their similarity to a devil or dragon due to their two large horn scales. They grow up to about 8.3 inches, 21 centimeters, long and can live for up to 2 decades. If you're going to spot these strange creatures anywhere, it's in the scrublands and desert areas of central Australia. Here, they survive by eating ants and collecting moisture from the dew that forms on their own bodies. These lizards have tiny grooves on their spines that allow water to travel down to their mouths, and they drink the same way when rain touches their bodies. But that's not all that's interesting about these little guys. They are covered in rigid, sharp spines, which they use as a form of defense, as they wouldn't be all that pleasant to swallow. They don't have many predators except for goannas and wild birds. To protect themselves, they lower their heads between their front legs, allowing them to present a false head. Number 14. Glaucus Atlanticus sea slugs. Glaucus Atlanticus is a fancy name for something as straightforward as a sea slug, but it won't take you long to realize there's something special about the sea slug. It almost looks mythical. They are commonly called blue sea dragons, sea swallows, blue angels, and blue dragons, and they suit every single one of those names. These beautiful 1.2-inch long slugs have striking blue coloring with dark blue stripes on their heads and a silvery gray color on their dorsal side. They also have flat, tapering bodies and 6 appendages that branch out, making them look absolutely mesmerizing in the water. Since they are pelagic, this means they float upside down and use the water's surface tension to stay up. Ocean currents and wind carry them along, meaning they basically don't need to put in any effort. As graceful and elegant as they look, you wouldn't want to touch one of these sea slugs. They eat other pelagic creatures and store stinging nematocysts from those animals in their own tissues, allowing them to deliver painful and sometimes dangerous stings. If you're stung, you may experience nausea, vomiting, pain, acute allergic contact dermatitis, skin redness, wart-like skin bumps, and post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation, which causes your skin to darken. So, as pretty and mythical as they look, these are not sea creatures you'll want to touch. Number 13. SAA Antelope. SAA Antelope are so strange-looking they almost seem like the bizarre creation of an author for a children's storybook. They're a critically endangered antelope, and their population has decreased by as much as 95% in just 15 years. SAAs have unique bloated nostrils that point downward. They have dark markings on their noses and cheeks, and their coat changes color depending on the time of year. Male SAA antelope have thick, wax-colored horns with up to 20 rings that grow up to about 15 inches long. These unique creatures live in a vast part of the Eurasian steppe, from the Carpathian Mountains in Europe all the way to Zungaria, a part of northwest China. They also used to live in Beringian North America and the British Isles during the Pleistocene epoch. Even though their numbers are dwindling, they're still hunted for their meat, horns, and skin, all of which have commercial value. The horn is a vital ingredient in Chinese medicine, with a similar value to rhino horn. However, some countries, such as Kazakhstan, have placed a ban on hunting saiga. Number 12. Vampire deer. Vampire deer isn't the name given to a single deer species. Instead, it incorporates a few different species that have impressive sets of fang-like teeth, similar to vampires, rather than the glorious antlers you might expect. Some of these deer, like the musk deer, are a collective group of up to 7 different animals that aren't true deer. They lack antlers, preorbital glands, and only have one gallbladder, a musk gland, a caudal gland, and a pair of canine tusks. Musk deer live in forested and alpine areas of southern Asia, and it's the males that fall under the category of vampire deer more than the females. They have enlarged upper canines that look like tusks, yet their dental development is similar to that of a deer. Let's not forget about the muntjac deer of Indonesia and southern Asia. These deer live in forests and have fewer chromosomes than a fruit fly. They have the lowest chromosome count of any other mammal. These deer do have small antlers, but their tusk-like canine teeth capture your attention first. They use these as weapons against other deer. Interestingly, female muntjac have 6 chromosomes, and the males have 7. That's far less than a potato, which has 48, and 1 or 2 less than fruit flies, which have 8. Number 11. Lanstreak Tenrec. At first glance, the Lanstreak Tenrec looks like an oversized mutant bumblebee. It has a yellow stripe and black patches made to stand out with a massive number of quills, serving as a reminder to predators that they're not to be messed with. Lanstreak Tenrecs aren't very big, growing up to about 7 inches long and weighing as much as 10 ounces. However, they don't need to be big to protect themselves. They can make their quills move and rub together to create sounds, which serve as warning signals to predators. They'll also stamp their feet when they smell predators and will erect their quills forward and laterally to protect themselves as much as possible. These cute little critters live in the northern and eastern areas of Madagascar, in the tropical lowland rainforest. You can find them on land, but they tend to spend much of their life splashing around in shallow water and digging underground. They're active at night and during the day, spending a lot of time digging up earthworms as their primary food source. They can also eat fruit and other invertebrates if they're available. This unique mythical-like creature's population numbers are currently of least concern, but deforestation does pose a risk to their future. Number 10. Okapi. Okapi are such unusual animals that people often call them forest giraffes or zebra giraffes. It's like nature had a few different features left over from other animals and decided to blend them all together to create this artiodactyl mammal that's endemic to the Democratic Republic of the Congo in Central Africa. These unique animals have striped markings like zebras, but they're actually more closely related to the giraffe. You can kind of see that in how long their necks are and how huge and flexible their ears are. Okapi stand nearly 5 feet tall at the shoulder and can be as long as 8.2 feet. They can also weigh up to 770 pounds. They have chocolate brown to red-brown coats, white horizontal stripes on their legs, white ankles, and horn-like growths on their heads that generally grow no longer than 6 inches. Their uniqueness doesn't end with their looks. They also don't act like many other mammals either. Okapi are mostly solitary and will only join others to breed. They are known to be active during the day and often within a few hours of the evening. Okapi are endangered, and some of the most significant threats they face relate to habitat loss from human settlements and logging, along with hunting for their skin and meat. Number 9. Bald Wakari. Bald Wakaris look so unusual you might assume they're mythical creatures, but they do exist in the wild. Bald Wakaris are New World monkeys with short tails, bright crimson faces, bald heads, and long coats. They only live in Várzea forests and wooded areas in Peru and the western Amazon of Brazil, making them a vulnerable species. Generally, these unique monkeys grow up to about 18 inches tall and weigh up to about 8 pounds. They have long shaggy coats and bob-like tails. Their red faces are caused by a lack of skin pigments and a large number of capillaries under their facial tissue. These monkeys are always on the move, traveling up to 4.8 kilometers, 3 miles, a day. They usually live in male and female groups of up to 30, and in some situations even up to 100. Their home area typically covers about 600 hectares, 1,500 acres, and they protect their territory at all costs. Bald Wakaris will erect their hair, wag their tails, and use vocalizations to warn off other monkey groups or predators. They can live for up to 30 years, both in the wild and in captivity. Number 8. Gerenuk. Gerenuk, or giraffe gazelles, are antelope with long necks that live in dry areas of East Africa and the Horn of Africa. They have long, slender necks and limbs, growing up to around 3.5 feet tall. You can generally identify Gerenuk by their smooth, reddish-brown coats and the horns on the males. These horns curve backward and then upward, growing up to 17.5 inches long. What's particularly fascinating about Gerenuk is their unique ability to stand upright on their hind legs for extended periods, a behavior that allows them to browse leaves and shoots out of reach for most other herbivores. This adaptation helps them survive in arid environments where food is often sparse and scattered. Additionally, their long necks are perfectly suited for reaching into dense thorny bushes without sustaining injury. Their specialized diet enables them to extract moisture from the plants they eat, reducing their dependency on water sources. These unique animals forage and feed throughout the day and expose themselves to rain to cool their bodies. They live in small herds of up to 6 members, and the groups are typically single-sex. It's not uncommon for males to live alone rather than in herds. Unlike many other animals, Gerenuk don't tend to travel or fight. Experts believe they avoid expending energy unnecessarily, saving it for foraging. To access higher branches on trees to eat flowers, fruit, and shoots, they will stand up on their hind legs, reaching nearly 7 feet above the ground. Number 7. Tardigrade. Tardigrades are so strange and absurd they almost don't seem real. That much is obvious when you learn they're also called water bears and moss piglets. These are segmented microanimals with 8 legs that live in nearly every part of Earth's biosphere, including mud volcanoes, deep oceans, tropical rainforests, and even Antarctica. Water bears are pretty much the most resilient animals on Earth. You could throw them into the deep ocean, then put them into a rainforest and they'd adapt with ease. They can survive extreme temperatures, extreme pressures, air deprivation, radiation, starvation, dehydration, and more. They've even survived exposure to outer space. It doesn't get much more absurd than that. Tardigrades grow up to about 0.5 millimeter, 0.02 inches, long. They are short and plump with little claws on their feet and suction discs. They mainly feed on plant cells, small invertebrates, and algae to survive. The unusualness of tardigrades has made them quite famous. They appeared in an episode of Family Guy in 2018, South Park the previous year, and even Star Trek, Discovery in 2017. There's also a song about them called Tardigrade Song by musician Cosmo Sheldrake. Number 6. Giant golden-crowned flying fox. The giant golden-crowned flying fox is quite an unusual bat. Endemic to the Philippines, it's one of the largest bat species in the world, weighing up to 3.1 pounds. These megabats, also called golden-capped fruit bats, mainly consume figs and leaves. They sleep during the day in trees before waking at night to forage. These bats are known to fly great distances in search of food, sometimes traveling over 25 miles in a single night. Their large wingspan, which can reach up to 5.6 feet, makes them powerful and efficient gliders. Roosting colonies often play an important ecological role by spreading seeds and helping maintain forest biodiversity. Unfortunately, their reliance on forested areas makes them particularly vulnerable to habitat loss. When they sleep in tree roosts, they usually share them with thousands of other bats, sometimes even with different species. We don't know much about how they reproduce, except that they have one pup at a time from April to June. Humans are their biggest predator due to deforestation and poaching for meat. They also face threats from natural predators like reticulated pythons and eagles. Telling the giant golden-crowned flying fox apart from other bat species can be challenging because they look similar. However, they have much smaller teeth and are, of course, much larger than most other bats. Approaching them isn't advisable, not just because wild animals should be left alone, but also because they've been investigated as a source of infectious diseases like the Reston virus, a form of Ebola virus that affects primates but not humans. Number 5. The Matamata Turtle. You're probably familiar with what your average turtle looks like, but when you see a Matamata turtle, you might think, whoa, that is definitely not what I was picturing. They really don't look like most other turtles at all. Matamata turtles are a freshwater species from South America, most commonly found in the Amazon and Orinoco basins, living in slow-moving bodies of water like marshes, swamps, and stagnant pools. They were first mentioned all the way back in 1741, with French naturalist Pierre Barrère describing them as large land turtles with spiky and ridged scales, and that's basically what they are. These turtles are known for their unique feeding strategy. Instead of biting prey, they use suction to engulf small fish by creating a vacuum with their wide mouths. This specialized feeding method allows them to conserve energy, as they are not active hunters. Their peculiar appearance, with a rough, bark-like shell and wrinkled skin, makes them one of the best camouflaged creatures in their habitat. This natural disguise is so effective that predators and prey alike often fail to recognize them as living creatures. These massive, sedentary turtles grow up to 37 inches long and can weigh 46 pounds, with lots of ridges and spikes. They have large, flattened heads that are somewhat triangular in shape, along with barbels on their chins and upper jaws. With all their deep notches and ridges, these turtles resemble pieces of bark, which helps them camouflage against potential predators. Number 4. Leafy Sea Dragon. Leafy sea dragons are so unusual in their looks and behaviors that it's easy to assume they are fictional creatures from a book. They are actually real marine fish that live along Australia's western and southern coasts. Leafy sea dragons get their name from the many leaf-like protrusions on their bodies. They don't use these for propulsion but rather as camouflage. They get around with the help of their pectoral and dorsal fins, while the rest of their protrusions move around in the water, making them look like floating seaweed, not a snack for predators. Leafy sea dragons tend to live alone but will pair up to breed. They are generally mature enough by the age of 2, and like other sea dragons, the males care for the eggs. These eggs hatch after around 9 weeks, but out of approximately 250, only about 5% survive. Their survival is crucial, as they have become endangered due to industrial runoff, pollution, and capture for the aquarium trade. They are protected in South Australia, Victoria, and Western Australia. However, some people do own them as pets, but it's an expensive and complicated process. They must come from captive bred stock before collecting restrictions were imposed, and owners must have a license. They are also challenging to keep alive and cost about $15,000 each, making them prohibitive for most collectors. You can catch a glimpse of them at aquariums in Australia, Canada, Southeast Asia, and the United States. Number 3. Venezuelan Poodle Moth. In 2009, the entire internet community lost their minds when the Venezuelan poodle moth was discovered. Very rarely do we hear about new animal discoveries, and especially not incredibly unique ones, so nearly everyone heard about this one. The Venezuelan poodle moth almost looks made up. It's fuzzy, adorable, and resembles a fairy, but it's just a very unusual moth. Zoologist Arthur Anker from Kyrgyzstan discovered it in 2009 and quickly identified it as a new species. The poodle moth is white, fluffy, and has brown antennae with large, black, bulging eyes. Its delicate wings are covered in dense fur-like scales, which give it a soft, cloud-like appearance, further enhancing its ethereal charm. Some scientists believe that the poodle moth may be closely related to other moths in the Lasiocampidae family, known for their hairy bodies. The pictures of this moth are so unique that many people thought it was a hoax. Surely a creature this absurd couldn't exist and remain undiscovered for so long. Its name, which likens it to a cross between a moth and a poodle, is very fitting. Unfortunately, we know almost nothing about this moth, as it hasn't been spotted again since Arthur found it. It was discovered in the Canaima National Park in Venezuela, suggesting it may like diverse habitats such as rock plateaus and moist forests. Number 2. Golden Tortoise Beetle. Most beetles are pretty interesting, but one stands out so much it might be mistaken for a piece of lost jewelry, the golden tortoise beetle. This leaf beetle, native to the Americas, grows up to about 7 millimeters long. It can appear reddish-brown with black spots or mirror-like gold, earning it the nickname goldbug. These beetles change color throughout their development, while mating, and when disturbed, such as when people touch them. This ability to shift colors so dramatically has fascinated researchers and led to speculation that it could be used for camouflage or signaling. The reflective gold appearance is due to microscopic layers within their exoskeleton that refract light, creating their jewel-like shine. Scientists haven't looked into exactly why or how this happens, but it has been observed in other beetles when their elytra, forewings, dehydrate and rehydrate. Golden tortoise beetles are fascinating not just in appearance but also in their life cycle. They lay clusters of eggs on the stems of host leaves, and reddish-brown or yellow larvae emerge within 10 days. The larvae collect their shed skin and solid excreta to cover their bodies with a type of fecal shield for protection. This shield deters small insects like ants, giving the larvae a better chance of survival. After about 2 weeks, they emerge as adults, completing their unique and mythical-like life cycle. Number 1. Redlipped Batfish. You'd be forgiven for thinking that red-lipped batfish aren't real. They're so comical that they seem like something out of a myth, but these fish are very real and live around the Galapagos Islands and Peru. As their name suggests, they are known for their bright red lips. The rest of their bodies are relatively pale in color, but their vivid red mouths are incredibly distinctive. Red-lipped batfish are remarkable in other ways, too. Unlike most fish, they are poor swimmers, so they use their pectoral, pelvic, and anal fins to walk along the ocean floor. Their movement is slow and deliberate, almost resembling a strut, which adds to their quirky charm. Scientists believe this unique adaptation allows them to better navigate their rocky habitats while conserving energy. Interestingly, their bright red lips may play a role in communication or mating displays, although this is not yet fully understood. Their bodies are also equipped with unique spines that may help them blend into their surroundings or deter potential threats. As bottom dwellers, they feed on small invertebrates like mollusks, worms, shrimp, and crabs. Hunting is made easier by their dorsal fin, which they use as a lure for prey. This adaptation makes up for their inability to outswim other creatures. Surprisingly, they don't have any predators or direct threats, although rising sea temperatures could affect their natural habitat and food sources. For now, their population numbers appear stable, and their conservation status is listed as least concern. There truly are some unique, strange, and downright mythical creatures in the world. Can you think of any that didn't make our list? And which one did you find the most unusual? Don't forget to check out more cool content appearing on your screen right now. See you next time.